Yeah. Hair flip. Yeah, I'm a badass bitch. I don't like it. Hair flip. Yeah. Oh my god. So you guys should be happy. Oh my goodness. Hair flip. But anyways, hair flip. And hair flipping on these hoes. Hi.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to your boy SeanDavieWay. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you so much for your continuous support and subscribing and liking all of the videos, keeping us up in the algorithm, really pushing these videos. Shout out to the Surviving the 90s series. We will be finishing it up with this last video, the Steve Harvey show, and we will be darting right into the new millennium. So anything from 2000 to 2010 that you guys want to hear about, make sure you say it underneath the videos, and we will also do polls and get right into the new millennium of sitcoms and surviving them. So once again, thank you all for your support. I've had so much fun jumping into these nostalgic type of themed shows and whatnot. We love the 90s. We love everything the 90s had to bring. So this is the end. It's bittersweet. So without holding you any further, let's get right into the Steve Harvey Show. The Steve Harvey Show. The Steve Harvey Show is an American television sitcom that aired on the WB from August 25th, 1996 to February 17th, 2002. It was created by Winifred Harvey and directed by Stan Lathan. Steve Hightower, played by Steve Harvey, is a 1970s funk legend who is now a music teacher / vice principal at Booker T. Washington High School on Chicago's West Side. Budget cutbacks meant Steve also had to teach drama and art. Much to his surprise, Cedric Robinson, played by Cedric the Entertainer, is a coach at the high school and Steve's longtime best friend. The principal of Booker T. Washington High is Steve's former classmate Regina Greer, played by Wendy Raquel Robinson, whom Steve affectionately called Piggy because she was overweight in her childhood. Steve forms a strong bond with two of his students, Romeo Santana, played by Merlin Santana, a stylish, self-absorbed ladies' man, and equally attractive friend Stanley, nicknamed Bullethead, played by William Lee Scott, acting as their mentor and gradually accepts them as friends. Season 2, the show introduced a new character, a secretary named Lovita Jenkins, played by Terry J. Vaughn, a woman who was fundamentally in the good mood, but nonetheless considerably undefined in the terms of disposition. Cedric and Lovita began dating and eventually married and gave birth to a child. The show also featured a succession of young actresses who served as female foils to Romeo and Bullethead. The longest lasting of these was Lori Beth Denberg and overachieving socially inept Lydia Gutman. Rapper The Lady Rage also had a recurring role as Coretta the Ox Cox, a physically massive, brutish teenage girl in romantic pursuit of Romeo. Coretta would call Bullethead a broke Brad Pitt whenever he annoyed her, but would usually refer to Lydia as Linda, Lisa, or Lucy, only correctively calling her Lydia one time. Steve was part of a fictional music group called Steve Hightower and the High Tops, who temporarily reunite to perform on occasion. The members consisted of Steve, T-Bone, played by T.K. Carter and later by Don D.C. Curry, Pretty Tony, played by Ron Isley of the Isley Brothers, and Clyde, played by Jonathan. Two of their signature songs performed several times on the show were When the Funk Hits the Fan and later on Break Me Off a Piece of That Funk. Though Cedric was not the original member of the group, he usually sang with them on several events. Let's get into the main cast members. Steve Harvey as Steve Hightower. Cedric the Entertainer as Cedric Jackie Robinson. Merlin Santana as Romeo Santana. William Lee Scott as Stanley Bullethead. Wendy Raquel Robinson as Principal Regina Greer Maddox. Lori Beth Denberg as Lydia Liza Gutman. The series was first distributed to syndication to the WB, Fox, and UPN, and independent affiliates in the United States by Columbia TriStar Television Distribution in September 2001, and remained airing in the broadcast syndication in some of U.S. markets on various local stations, such as WCIU and Me TV in Chicago, as late as 2008. From 2001 to 2005, reruns aired on New York's UPN station. From 2014 to June 2016, after Bill Cosby's allegations, The Cosby Show reruns were replaced on WPIX by reruns of The Steve Harvey Show. The show has started airing again in syndication as of 2015. A lot of people know Steve Harvey from the show Steve Harvey as his first sitcom, but it actually wasn't. He had a sitcom before that only ran for one season and it was canceled. Let's get into that. After a successful season on Showtime at the Apollo, Harvey headlined his own sitcom in 1994. In Me and the Boys, Steve was a widowed father of 3 sons who ran a video store in Dallas, Texas. The series was a rating hit between Full House and Home Improvement, but ABC chose to cancel it after one season. Steve's quote, "What I'm most upset about is what the show stood for," Harvey told the Los Angeles Times in May of 1995. "It destroyed a lot of stereotypes." Harvey stars as Steve Tower, a widower who ran a video store in Dallas, who was struggling with raising 3 boys on his own. Maud Sinclair, in her last acting role before her death in 1995, 10 months after the series cancellation, co-starred as Steve Hightower's mother-in-law, Mary. Chaz Lamar Shepard, Wayne Collins Jr., and Benjamin Levert played the sons of Steve Harvey's character. The series was scheduled on Tuesdays following Full House. How the Steve Harvey Show almost didn't happen. When Me and the Boys was canceled, Harvey and his producers approached writer-producer Winifred Harvey to develop a new series, but she was reluctant. "I didn't really feel like Steve was quite my cup of tea," Harvey told the TV Academy in 2013. "But when I sat down with him, I sort of got him, and that's when I came up with the concept." Harvey partnered with the executive producer Stan Lathan, a groundbreaking African-American director who got his start on Sanford and Son in 1974. Lathan directed all 122 episodes of The Steve Harvey Show. The sitcom Me and the Boys actually birthed the show The Steve Harvey Show. Me and the Boys was in blocks. Back in the 90s, they did blocks where they would have multiple shows within a certain time slot, meaning like it could be a 2-hour time slot, a 3-hour time slot, and they will put shows inside of it and they will call it, a block, like Thank God It's Friday, all type of things and what they used to do back in the 90s. It was very creative. So the time slot, the block that they had at the time was Full House, Me and the Boys, and Home Improvement. ABC didn't feel that Me and the Boys fit the time slot. It's more so of 2 predominantly white shows that are extremely successful, and then you're throwing this show in the middle of it, and they didn't feel that it fit. They didn't want to put more money into something that they were going to get rid of anyway. So after one season, the show Me and the Boys was canceled so that they could put another show in that block to remove it to make the show make more sense, or the block, I should say, make more sense. And after, Steve and his producers approached Winifred Harvey, and a lot of people didn't like Steve. He was very demanding. There were certain things that certain people just weren't feeling when it came to him. So that's what Winifred is talking about when she says that, he wasn't my cup of tea, because he didn't have the best name in working with him in Hollywood. He was very demanding, and other things. So after talking to Steve, she got a better headset, a better headspace into where Steve was coming from, and they got along decently. So she decided to partner up, Winifred decided to partner up with Stan Lathan with a show idea and bring Steve as the frontrunner of a show called The Steve Harvey Show, which was amazing. And Stan Lathan directed Sanford & Son, which was a huge show in the 70s. And you add Winifred to it and you have a successful show called The Steve Harvey Show, so that they birthed. So shout out to them for that, and also shout out to Steve Harvey for not giving up on his dream. The first episode kicks off with Steve Hightower addressing the audience. They call that breaking the fourth wall in TV lingo, and filling us in on his character's backstory. Back in the day, we were the bomb, he says, of his former funk band. We had so much money, we'd write a check and the bank would bounce. Sadly for Steve, but happily for us, those days are over and he's beginning his new life as a high school music teacher and mentor to a crew of quirky kids. Cedric, the portly gym teacher at Booker T. Washington High School and Steve's best friend since college, he's also Steve's roommate and the guy who got him the job at the school. Ced was a high-top roadie back in the day and is a wannabe member of the group when they reunite. He's sort of Steve's sidekick in season 1, but gets more focus and a girlfriend beginning in season 2. Regina is the principal, Steve's new boss and former high school classmate. And that's where it gets complicated. When they were kids, Steve used to mock Regina for her weight, nicknaming her Blubberbutt, Fat Alberta, and Piggy. Steve doesn't recognize the new stylish Miss Greer when they meet again, but he discovers her true identity at the end of the first episode. Their relationship thaws and later heats up, despite the complication of her marrying someone else. Through it all, she's always competitive with Steve, often yelling, "Bam," in your face when she beats him at something. Finally, Bullethead is the first kid Steve meets when he starts teaching is the goofy but good-natured Bullethead William Lee Scott. 20 years later, Scott and Harvey reunited on Harvey's daytime talk show, where Scott thanked him for changing his life. He also revealed that he married Charlene Bloom, the actress who played Bullethead's girlfriend on season 4, The Honeymooners. Romeo Santana, Merlin Santana, is the stylish, muscular ladies' man at Booker T. Washington High School. He and Steve get off to a bad start, but the two eventually develop a father-son bond. Episodes often revolve around Romeo's pursuit of female students or their pursuit of him. He and Bullethead are also an inseparable team for the entire run of the series. Clean Cut Lydia, or Lori Beth Denberg, is the good girl of Booker T. Washington High School, and Steve often uses her to set an example for the other kids. Denberg has perfect comedic timing, developed in the Nickelodeon sketch comedy series All That, and she often delivers the show's biggest laughs. Her performance in the graduation episode in season 6 is a standout. Lovita Alize Jenkins. Fan favorite Lovita, Terry J. Vaughn, is introduced in the first episode of season 2 when she gets a job at the school and immediately catches Cedric's eye. They eventually get married and have a baby. Merlin Santana, who played Stanley on The Cosby Show and Romeo on The Steve Harvey Show, was 26 when false claims against him led to his death. Merlin Santana of The Steve Harvey Show fame led a life that held a lot of promise, but it got cut short at the age of 26 when a bullet from a 12 gauge hit him in the head, slaying him on the spot. It happened on the night of November 9th, 2002. Santana and his friend, Brando Quentin Adams, were leaving the latter's apartment at Crenshaw District, Los Angeles. They got into a car, but before driving off, shots targeted the actor erupted with a bullet that ended him. Adams managed to drive away, but realized as soon as he stopped that Santana had passed away. Police's investigation revealed the gunmen to be Damian Gates and Brandon Douglas Bynes. The two men were instigated to attack the late actor by Monique King, Gates' girlfriend. Monique King, who was 15 at the time, falsely accused the deceased of SAing her. It turned out that Santana met her at a nightclub some nights earlier before he passed away. They had intercourse without the deceased knowing she was underage, and the child actor later changed his mind, which offended the teenager and led to her lie. During the trial of King, she got tried as an adult without a jury and bagged 10 years in a juvenile jail. Gates got 3 life sentences and 70 years imprisonment for ending the life and attempted ending the life of Adams, and Bynes got 23 years after pleading guilty. So here's what happened. Merlin was at a nightclub and he ended up meeting a 15-year-old while he was in this nightclub, which was Monique King. She used a fake ID basically to get inside of the bar, inside of the establishment. So why would Merlin question her age if she's inside of the same club he is as a consenting adult? So he felt that she was the same thing. After the bar, which they clicked, they met each other there, they had a good time, and he liked her, he thought she was attractive. They went and had intercourse. After this intercourse, a little time later, in between time, Merlin found out her real age. He found out that she was 15 years old and she was still trying to pursue Merlin, and Merlin told her, hey, look, we can't have any dealings, you're only 15. I can get in a lot of trouble for what you did. You should have been honest about your age. So he wasn't happy. With that being said, she felt rejected. Monique King felt rejected by Merlin because she really liked him, but she was only 15. And not only that, Monique was in a relationship with another man, and this was Gates. So she went and tells her boyfriend that allegedly Merlin had R-worded her. Her boyfriend gets upset and enraged because not only did you sleep with my girlfriend, you did it without her consent. It's like you hurt or harmed my girlfriend. So now we got to get even. So he and a friend, Bynes, they get in the car and they wait for Merlin because they knew where he lived because of Monique. So Monique told them where Merlin lived, and just so happens Brando was hanging out with him that night. Merlin comes to get in the car. The men start to fire on them. And Brando pulls off, and as he pulls off, he noticed that Merlin actually got hit, and not only was he hit, he was slain. He had passed away right next to him. So that's what happened. This was all senseless. It didn't have to happen. This Monique girl was very troubled. She was a very troubled teenager. She went through a lot, but that still does not, exempt or explain the fact of why she lied on Merlin. And the result of it was him ending his life. Even the sheriff department that handled the case, they said the same thing. This was very senseless. It's very unfortunate. Merlin was very talented. This could have been taken care of in another way. So, but it's very unfortunate, but that's what happened. So RIP to Merlin Santana. William Lee Scott, the actor who played Bullethead, he and Merlin Santana were very close. William and Merlin were just as close on camera on the Steve Harvey show as they were outside of the camera. They were so close that his wife, William's wife, was jealous of their friendship. They hung out a lot. They were always on the phone with one another. And Merlin was very wild. He was a party type of guy. He came in and it was just, hey, kind of like a Diddy. Like everything is about him when he walks into the room, kind of like the life of the party. Not necessarily in a negative way, but he was really wild. He had a wild lifestyle that he lived. He was always with a different girl. He always had a bunch of girls around him and drinking and partying. So William says that he was not surprised, when Merlin passed away. So let's get into a clip of that.
I was not 100% surprised when I heard Merlin had passed away.
We would lose Merlin Santana.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first heard it?
Yeah, Terry called me. I gotta be honest with you. I was not 100% surprised when I heard Merlin had passed away.
The way that
Or no, that he had passed, or the fashion, or the circumstances. I was not surprised. Merlin was a wild dude. He was super talented, but he was wild.
So the cast of the Steve Harvey show was extremely saddened when Merlin had passed away. It was a very hard loss because Merlin was such a big part of the show to where a lot of people just couldn't stomach the fact that he was gone. It was just unbelievable, you know, to most people besides the people that were in his close inner circle, which was William. William was one of those people. And like you said, Merlin lived a very fast life. So it's not unexpected that something like that would happen when you're moving so fast, when you're coasting so fast and not really paying attention to your surroundings and the people that are around you. And Merlin was like that. He was very people oriented. He liked to meet people and hang with people and talk to people, which can be a good thing, but sometimes it can be a bad because you don't realize a person's intentions until they show you what they intend for you. So once again, a very hard loss. Rest in peace to Merlin. He did get a chance to finish all of filming with the Steve Harvey show. So he didn't pass in between time, because a lot of people think that he didn't get a chance to finish the show, and he actually did. When Merlin passed away, the filming for the Steve Harvey show was already over. A lot of people wondered why the Steve Harvey show ended. Why didn't it keep going? It was a very successful show, and in its last 2 seasons, it had its actually highest ratings of all. The first 2 seasons didn't get watched as nearly as the last 2. So people were shocked. They're like, well, the show is just starting to get good. It's like, why are we ending? And a lot of people thought the show got canceled, but it did not. As it turns out, the show was not canceled. Harvey was ready to move on and pursue new endeavors. He agreed to the final season of 13 episodes, and the last season of the Steve Harvey show scored higher ratings than the previous 2, which was unheard of at the time. So the last 2 seasons of the show did better than the first 2, which was shocking because the first 2 seasons of shows were usually the best that led up to the show either going on or to it getting canceled or just taking off of TV. Harvey was ready to pursue other things. He did not want to do the Steve Harvey show anymore, like Will Smith with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will was, apparently just ready to move on. He didn't want to do the show anymore. He felt like it was getting old. And the same thing with Steve Harvey. He felt like he was bigger than the show. He felt that he had more to offer. So he started doing that. I mean, he was doing movies like You Got Served and a bunch of other stuff, plus The Kings of Comedy. He was really taking off. He was really becoming a big Hollywood heavy hitter, and he didn't want to waste his talent or all of his energy in doing a show because the contracts are very binding and they limit you. You're very limited to the work that you get to do outside of doing a sitcom. It's one of the most pressing things to do in Hollywood is a sitcom because they take the majority of your time. So you're not really allowed to do any other work. So it kind of holds certain people back, especially if you're the star of the show, meaning other people want to work with you. Other people have projects and they want to list you as either the front runner or one of the supporting actors, and you're not even allowed to do it. So that's why he separated from the show, which was kind of weird because it was so successful when he was leaving. It had a lot of higher ratings than shows that had just came out with bigger stars, and he was beating them in ratings and also in support because the show was big, and not just because of Steve, more so because of, let's just be honest, Merlin. The show surrounded Merlin Santana and Bullethead. So Merlin was the front runner and Steve became more so of the supporting actor. So that's why I feel that Steve wanted to remove himself, because it's like, well, you got Merlin and that's really all you want. No different than Steve Urkel and how the show wasn't about him and then the show became pretty much all about Steve in Family Matters. It's kind of the same thing that happened with the Steve Harvey show. It kind of became the Merlin Santana show. So I believe that that's one of the main reasons Steve wanted to remove himself, because he was no longer the star. Merlin was, and that's why it was so sad for Merlin's career to be cut down only at 26, because he has so much more work to do. So that's why the Steve Harvey show ended, because he wanted to move on to other endeavors, and the Steve Harvey show just was not on his to-do list anymore. So he agreed to 13 episodes of the final season, which the network wanted more. I believe the initial number was 23 episodes, but they dropped it down to 13 because Steve wanted to, get away as soon as possible. So that's why the show ended. Steve walked away.
Flesh.